this picture so interesting and why the FBI has been asking the gentleman who shot it is because the man ran away from the blast virtually at this moment, seconds after it detonated. And the positioning of the body, the way he's phased and angered, it's one of the things that the FBI are looking at to try to understand. The man who took that picture works in the building next door, and he'd been snapping photographs all day and decided to sort of wander over to the scene, wander over to the window at that moment. And as he picked up his camera, that's when he heard the blast. And he recorded about 12 different snapshots of this individual running from the scene. And so we know that the FBI has spoken to him several times, questioning him as to what he may have seen, but it happened so quickly. It's just the positioning of the body. The man actually jumps over a woman who has fallen on the ground. And the behavior, the way he's moving, the way he's acting, he's running away from both blasts, that's all something that's under investigation by the FBI at this moment.
Deborah, you talked to the person who took these images. At the time, did he notice anything about that person, or was he just videotaping the scene without realizing what he had captured?
That's what's so incredible about this. He said that the explosion happened, and it was deafening, and everyone was in shock. If you look at the people who were around that one image of the man who's sort of coming through the smoke, everyone was stunned except this one individual. He didn't know what he was looking at. The photographer, Ben Thorndike, didn't even know what he was looking at. It wasn't until he actually got home, Chris, that he downloaded those images and realized that there was something on there that simply didn't fit, that wasn't consistent with the responses of everybody else. The FBI has not identified any names, has not spoken to anybody, but what's fascinating about this entire investigation, in a way, is that they're recreating everything through the images. So it's almost as if they had thousands of witnesses, each of whom may have seen this one sliver, one snapshot that pieces together the whole of what went on there. But no, he didn't even realize what he was looking at because it happened so fast. But we do know he was turned away from the blast and running within a second of it going off.
Well, first of all, it's amazing that this man took it upon himself to go back and review the photos because he had this instinct about it. Literally, a normal citizen reaching out may have helped propel the investigation. But just to clarify, Deb, you're sure that federal officials have been meeting with him, have this photo in their possession? It's something that they have reviewed?
They absolutely do. They spoke with the photographer, Ben Thorndike, at least 3 times. They asked him about the photographs, and they have reviewed these photographs to see whether, in fact, they're consistent with images that they're now piecing together through others. There are certain snapshots that are circulating at the highest levels of individuals, people of interest, who may have been identified. So how the FBI has their names, how they were able to zero in on the actual identity, that is clearly good work on their part. But we do know that, in fact, that he was interviewed. But again, when something happens that fast, people react differently. Maybe this individual was just trying to run, get away from it. But if you look very closely at everyone around him, the way they're holding their ears, the way they're stunned or flattened, you can tell that this is just it's out of context. It's not an ordinary behavior for what was happening at that moment.
Deborah, we understand authorities, another video that's been instrumental is this video that was taken outside or near the Lord and Taylor department store. Do you know where the person you talked to, the image that we've been showing, where that camera was in relation to the camera by the Lord and Taylor?
The camera that he was pointing out, this was right by the finish line. The man works in a building that's positioned right at the finish line, and so he was focused out. So I'm not 100% clear in terms of what the juxtaposition is. But again, one thing that has to be kept in mind as well, if this was the first blast to occur, then they have to piece together whether it would have been possible for a single individual to detonate the two devices at the same time, or whether, in fact, there were men in that crowd communicating with each other about dropping their packages and then moving off. So all of these are sort of items that they've got to cross off their list.
Can I just say something? So this is, I shouldn't say this on TV, but this is a good time when TV unfolds maybe faster. So there is a difference between the identification, which everyone can confirm now, right? Everyone is saying it, and whether there's an arrest. And the arrest is significant because the 5 p.m. presser, which is now confirmed, is going to tell us either we have the guy or it's going to say we need your help finding the guy. And that's significant for the public, for our sense of safety here. So this may look very different in about an hour if we learn that there has been no arrest. Right. But the good news is that at least there's an identification of an individual. So this is something. A suspect
can be taken into custody without an arrest.
Right. So this is all the terminology. But the key point here is no one can confirm right now, at least a public official is confirming right now, that there is actually an individual who is in custody with something legal about to happen to him. And until we know that, then the 5 p.m. is really relevant, because either we're going to learn we got him, which is great, and just for the sense of safety and wow, that was only 48 hours, or we're going to need your help finding him, or he's long gone. Right?
It is extraordinary, just the omnipresence of cell phone cameras, how it has changed everything, and it appears aided in this investigation.
And that's what they knew. I mean, when they came out on Monday, and then Tuesday was just particularly sort of, desperate's the wrong word, it was just sort of asking people to come forward.
There had been a lot of concern yesterday afternoon that though they were learning more about the device itself, the devices themselves, that they weren't very far along on any kind of suspect. Now, whether or not they had some information then that they weren't giving out, or the break was made subsequent to that afternoon press conference, we don't know.
Right, exactly. I mean, by the time I finally went to sleep at about midnight, I had a conversation with someone in Boston Police who sort of implied that this was going to be a long haul and everyone should get a good night's sleep.
30 different government agencies involved. One very easily could be just obsessing over this make, this manufacturer, where they were sold. But at the same time, if you're processing the video and you see an image and it cross-references with this photo, then it has really nothing to do with the pressure cooker. You identified it independently. You made the point about the arrest, though, that we should take a second on, because if there is an arrest, that means that they found more than an identification. They found probable cause for this, and that's a pretty legitimate legal standard.
And that's what I was saying. You know, everyone is watching. I have enough confidence in government, having served in it, that there's not going to be a very public screw up, and so that's why I'm going to stand here being somewhat cautious about what we know in terms of a specific arrest as compared to knowing who the individual is. Now, this is going to unfold in a half hour, an hour. People will know a lot more in sort of a short time. But
and they could bring him in without an arrest. It could be an interview. He could have consented to it.
Well, he could have consented to it, but the kinds of leaks, the kinds of information that's going out let's just say there's a performance factor going on here for the government as well. They had a good response, but the people involved here, the JTTF, the FBI, the Department of Justice, this White House, they are not going to put someone forward and then say, oh, sorry, 48 hours later. So we should be a little bit cautious until we actually know that there's a person in custody. And why this is relevant is if there's still someone on the loose, I don't want to say this person's going to do something again. It's just we're going to need the public again to tell us, as we have in other cases, maybe you've seen him, maybe you saw him leaving Boston. You know, this city emptied out since Monday. It didn't have to do with the terrorist attacks. That we have hundreds of thousands of people here during Boston Marathon. A lot of people are gone. And so if that person is not here, they may be long gone.
There are also people still in the hospital, still in critical condition, who may have seen something, who were very close to the device when it went off. In fact, those closest to the device are the ones who were most injured, and therefore they may be a font of information down the road.
So so it's very possible that we have all this information and we actually know who the individual is between the picture and previous information that we have about this person. And as I was saying before, just general law enforcement, you're going to track a picture down. You might have a picture of someone, they might be a part of a community that has been sort of, worried where this person has gone. I'll be, sort of vague here, and the capture of that person. And until we don't want to get too far ahead of this, because this actually has significance for the capture of this person. Sure. If he is free, if he is out and about, the public needs to know who it is.
So remember, just to take a half a step back, this is accelerated incredibly quickly. Yeah. I mean, even by John's, who's obviously been ahead on the reporting, John King, within the span of an hour and a half, we went from them saying on videotape, they identified somebody putting down a bag, right? They said, well, we know the individual as a brown-skinned male. That's what they said. A lot of people get offended. Oh, why are you describing him like that? Within an hour and a half, we then get word he's in custody.
Right.
So obviously, it went from something vague to specific, if this is all right.
The other question is, remember, 2 days ago, there was that BOLO, that be on the lookout alert to law enforcement for somebody in a dark sweatshirt with a black bag who had attempted to gain access to a secure area and then had turned around, apparently with a foreign accent. We have no idea if that correlates to the person that seems to be a suspect at this point.
Right, and exactly. So what the government has going for it now is at least a sense of competency, right? That this has been handled in a really, by local, state, and federal law enforcement in a really measured, sane way. It's very scary for those of us who live here what happened. The response was good. The investigation's been very open and public. To make an arrest that they don't have enough on is just, I'm pretty confident that's not going to happen, because if the public loses confidence in what is going on here, they're going to lose confidence, and I think, in our safety and security, and that's not something any government official wants.
Obviously, the person, if they have been arrested or when they are arrested, is read their Miranda rights, has the same rights as any other criminal defendant.
Right. This is good old-fashioned law enforcement, and it actually works in a lot of these cases.
Even though it's described as an act of terrorism, they still have all the same rights
criminal terrorism
as everybody
statutes.
else. The other, I mean, so many questions. Then once they've identified this person, to answer, did this person act alone? Did this person place the device alone and yet have cohorts who help them manufacture the device?
He doesn't have to answer any of it.
Of course. He doesn't have to answer any of it.
But that's what the investigation. That's where the investigation will continue.
Right, but Chris, I mean, these are also sort of hypothetical. I mean, he will be in law enforcement custody. There are a lot of ways to entice people to speak. There are a lot of ways to, if you actually have an individual, determine who he has been with or others he's been with.
Where that person lives, what their neighbors have seen, who came and went from the apartment,
and let's
phone
just say,
records.
This was not a suicide bomber, right? So this is a person with a lot of motives that might be able to be used by good law enforcement to get other information out. This is not someone who wanted to die for the cause. So that means there's sort of a weak link there.
It is very possible, and again, we don't want to go down the road of speculation, but it is very possible if this was done with some sort of political agenda, some sort of desire to make a statement, that person may very well want to continue to make a statement using their own words.
And they may have that. A lot of people believe that they are part of an organization of which that organization has no idea that they're a part of. Right? A lot of people have delusions, a lot of crazy people. So if we learn that they believe that they're...
Juliet's been saying this from the beginning, that sometimes people think they're acting in direction of a cause that they're really not even a part of.
Right. I mean, people have delusions of grandeur. And so we have to be very cautious about his representations of who he is, right? That, I'm a member of some grand organization, whether it's domestic and foreign, and really where the evidence points. And that's what law enforcement is for. But this is, the debates we've had for the last 12 years about whether terrorism should be a war or law enforcement. I mean, it just is. This is how it's going to unfold, and those debates are less important than getting this guy.
Juliet, we're getting some conflicting reports about an arrest. We have Tom Fuentes with us right now. Tom, can you hear us? You with us?
Yes, I can.
All right, Tom, what are you hearing?
Okay, I have actually 3 separate sources, but 2 that are very highly placed and close to the investigation that have just told me that there has been no arrest, and in fact, a suspect has not been identified by name yet, that they have, they're looking for someone, but they don't have anybody in custody yet, and they don't have an identification.
Okay, now, that would be... we don't know what's right or not right at this point, and as Anderson always says, you don't want to go down the road of speculation wrongfully. But again, to say that they went from spotting someone on a videotape with a very vague description to finding him in such a short amount of time is a very unbelievable thing. It's possible.
I know, my caution, though, I mean, it is... Look, there's people involved with law enforcement activities. Sorry I've been so cautious, and thanks, Tom, because I was getting a little bit nervous that we were getting ahead of this. But there's a lot of people involved in the investigation, and a lot of people only know some pieces, right? So someone may have heard something, and I think you know, in some ways just waiting to determine. But Chris, on your point, the idea that they went from millions of pieces of evidence to a picture of a guy is not bad news. This is good news.
It's good news.
And then now we're going to have to engage the public or whomever else to get the person.
Tom Fuentes, formerly with the FBI, just repeat that. So what you were hearing from 3 separate sources is that no arrest, and they do not know the identity of the person. What do they have?
Well, they have the photos that have been described, and the photos are pretty clear as to what